Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin, and joining me as usual is Matt.
Yeah, good day, everyone.
So, what did we do last week's episode? I'm kind of forgetting.
Last week we talked to a good mate. I think it was Joel from Using.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because sometimes we do these out of order and we kind of forget where we're going. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed last week's episode. If not, go check it out now because that was a good one. I really enjoyed sitting down and talking to Joel.
Yeah, it was a good episode from an even better guy.
Yeah. So this week, no guests, just me and Matt. So we're going back to the history. We're trudging along through 1987 here, and we're going to August of 1987. And we're going to talk about two albums that came out in August. One from a very, very notorious band, Mayhem. We're going to talk about their Deathcrush EP, and we're going to talk about Cacophony's Speed Metal Symphony.
The very kind of tragic tale of Cacophony.
Yeah. So that gets me sad every time I talk about it. We're going to get into that. And then in between those two, we're going to bring you guys some little chit-chat about some new releases as usual, our new weekly breakdown segment. And let's get going into this Mayhem, man. I know you're not a big black metal fan, Matt, so I want to know what you thought about the album before we start talking about it.
Look, this is the kind of black metal I like. It's very kind of lo-fi. It sounds like it's recorded in kind of a tin can. It's very kind of, balls to the wall. Like, it is. It's fucking Mayhem.
Yeah.
Compare it to like the other like more kind of drawn out like symphonic stuff. So to answer your question, what did I think about this EP? I really liked it.
Yeah. That's kind of the reason I wanted to talk about this EP because this is, besides Venom, the whole start of the black metal scene. This EP right here. Maybe, we did have Celtic Frost, but Celtic Frost wasn't as like straightforward black metal. That was more symphonic, maybe even a little bit more, I can't think of the word, but they had like
more kind of avant-garde. But like when you think of black metal, when you think of just kind of really just how it starts, you think of Mayhem. Even normies know what Mayhem is. Like even just normal people like know what Mayhem is.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I was thinking about like black metal and how kind of intrusive it is as a sound, and like people hear it, and that's kind of like the cliche thing that people think metal and death metal and everything is like what Mayhem is, like the face paint, the satanic imagery, like it's all boiled down into this one band.
Exactly. Yeah, the leather jackets, everything.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was important to talk about this EP because this is where it all starts, from here, this is where you get the whole Norwegian black metal scene, and then, that goes into the Scandinavian black metal and so on and so forth. And the beginnings of Mayhem, they had a lot of member changes for various reasons. We're not going to go super, super into, like, all of the drama and stuff that happened within the scene. We want to talk more about the album itself and the band itself. If you really look at this record, all of its lyrics and its sound was pretty largely influenced by like early death metal bands. The singer Dead, like after he joined the group, the band adopted darker lyrical topics, and the guitar player Euronymous started rejecting most death metal bands as their lyrics turned towards like social awareness and normal topics instead of death worship, because he wanted things to be like a little more serious and extreme. And so after that, Dead kind of stated that the lyrics, they're not bad at all, but they are later what would become gore and trendy. And if you think about it, he does have a point, because, later on down the road, you'd have bands like Cannibal Corpse, and that's like their whole shtick, just all gore and like
all gore all the time.
Yeah, it's killing and death. Fucked with a knife. Icon blood.
It's basically just lyrics and themes just purely for shock value.
Yeah. And it's a thing about like the way a lot of this stuff was written too, because the thing about Dead is he didn't write a lot of stuff. It was actually the bass player that wrote stuff. Necro Butcher was his pseudonym for the band. They all have like these crazy like names like Count Griznak and Dead and fucking Bungholio.
Something like that, yeah. Ghoul.
Ghoul.
Or Gull. Yeah.
Hellhammer. Frost. Jeez.
It's just, I know that I feel like when kind of growing up and like, you know, finding black metal, I think that was like one thing that really kind of just turned me off. It was just like, not so much the stage names, it's just how like ridiculously kind of like, at the time I thought corny it all kind of was. I was like, oh wow, there's a guy called Frost. That's, you know, cool. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, they all have to come. They're all these bands are named after, for the most part, like Lord of the Rings kind of stuff. You know, Gorgoroth is a Lord of the Rings reference. You know, Griznak, I think, is one of the orcs in Lord of the Rings. So, you know, these guys are heavily influenced by fantasy, and that's kind of where they took their influences from a little bit, you know, along with like growing up in Norway where you have like Norwegian myths and Thor and Odin, all that kind of
Trolls,
stuff.
yeah. Like,
Trolls, yeah.
Yeah, see that film Troll Hunter?
Yeah. Awesome movie.
Oh, it's fucking sick, yeah.
Yeah, so they have like a lot of stuff to kind of pull from, you know, that gives like black metal its imagery, and they did a good job of incorporating all that stuff into not just Mayhem, but like the black metal scene as a whole. You know, Dark Throne, everybody kind of using this as like, you know, inspiration, I guess. So the opening track, it's called Silvestar Anfang, I guess. It's actually a cover of a piece by a German electronic composer named Konrad Schnitzler. He used to work with like a bunch of krautrock bands like Tangerine Dream and Cluster. Basically, Euronymous found Schnitzler's home address, and he sat outside his house until his wife invited him in.
Yeah, that's some spooky shit right there.
Yeah, these guys were very, very... I don't know if I can find a good word for it, but, you know, not only were they young, but they were just kind of like shitheads all around for the most part. Like, they didn't give a shit about other people's personal space or, you know, feelings or anything. Like, they were just out to cause, you know, for lack of a better word, mayhem, you know?
Yeah, they were just like, that was probably like actual just like punk behavior, no good punk kid behavior.
Yeah, they were a little bit like punk rockers, just a little bit more sinister in there, you know?
Yeah, in their kind of their methods and their kind of like, you know, meanings and influences. I mean, we're not even going to get into everything that they've done.
Yeah, it's a long story. I'm sure we'll cover it eventually. You know, if you guys kind of like want to hear about the black metal scene and all the fucked up stuff, there's this other podcast recently. They're a bigger podcast called Last Podcast on the Left. They covered like all the church burnings, all the murders, all the suicides that were involved in the black metal scene. So go listen to those. It's pretty interesting. Or you can watch the documentary Until the Light Takes Us. That's pretty informative and covers a lot of that stuff too, even though it's pretty controversial, and a lot of the guys in the scene pretty much say that documentary is bullshit. But what are you going to do? If it doesn't align with like your narrative, of course it's going to be bullshit.
Exactly, yeah. And these people, they're not the most, you know, kind of camera and media friendly.
No. Yeah, they rarely like giving interviews. They don't really, they're so underground that like, you know, they might as well just like be in a grave.
Exactly. I mean, there was that Headbangers Journey documentary.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just like, what the fuck you doing? Oh my god, like, you know, get out of, like, you know, what's up? Like he wanted like literally like wanting to fight the guy just for asking a question.
Yep. Yeah, that was pretty fucked up.
And it's like, dude, you're 40.
So, kind of a little bit more stuff about this album. The drummer, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but I think it's Ketel Mannheim. He stated that the band's sound was something that a lot of studio technicians didn't know how to record. So the drummer himself, he went in there and just like he put the settings himself, and then they just recorded. And he also says that there was no mix before or after. There was no overdubs, bass, drums, guitar, all live, and then the vocals were recorded right after, pretty much. And I think that's probably kind of what gives black metal that lo-fi sound. You know, you have somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, just setting like knobs and
twisting buttons and knobs, and then all of a sudden it's got what they're after.
Yep.
You know, how much of that was actually the fact that no, I set these myself, this is what we're doing because it's mine, or this is what they actually wanted it to sound like. Either way, the album still sounds good, like, you know, 30 years later.
Yeah, and I think that's due to a lot of black metal not really changing a lot in 30 years, if you really think about it. Stylistically and how black metal has sounded, it's the one genre that's not really grown. There are outliers, obviously. Like, there's bands that, like, kind of escape the lo-fi sound and everything and, like, you know, transcend that. But, you know, there's a lot of bands that... I mean, even Mayhem now, to this day, if you listen to their album that came out a couple years ago, it sounds like it came out in 1987. Or, you know, it sounds good, like it sounds fucking awesome and heavy, but, you know, it's still got that gritty.
It's still very reminiscent of this.
Yep. Yeah, and this album does sound really good. That's one of the things I'm surprised about. I don't think I found like how much they paid to record, but shit. Yeah, I don't know how much they paid to record this album, but I can't imagine it was very much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So actually, another thing, Necro Butcher gets a little bit more into like how they recorded it. So I have like this little interview thing here. It says, the guy asks the question, basically, he says, people obsess over your early recordings and their downright nasty, raw sonic quality. Can you tell me what it was like recording your debut album, Deathcrush? And he says basically that when they came to the studio in 1986 and 1987 to record Deathcrush, the technician there didn't know what kind of band we were. He asked where our special snare drum was, and we didn't know what he was talking about. So he said, well, you're a reggae band, aren't you? And we were like, no, not really. God, this is like the farthest thing from reggae. And so then the engineer, he was trying to set up the gear and asking us, like, what can I expect? And we said, we don't know exactly. Just plug us in and you'll see. And so that's kind of what they did. They plugged it in, and it was a clean recording in the way that he didn't put any effects in post-production. He didn't mix it. He just kind of put the balance in between and all the different instruments, and this is what it sounded like. And the guy had never heard anything like that before. So he says, like I said, he was expecting a reggae band. The Deathcrush album is a very honest album because that is what it sounded like from our backline, and that's what we wanted to capture. And seeing as a technician who was working there didn't know anything about anything, we had to set all the volumes for him. It's pretty funny that it turned out the way it did. So there you have it. I mean, that makes sense. They just kind of winged it for the most part, it sounds like. They had a guy that thought he was going to record a reggae band for some reason.
Yeah, they probably just trolled him.
Yeah, I'd be like, what kind of reggae band's called Mayhem? Doesn't sound very like peace and smoking weed.
What kind of reggae band comes from Norway?
Yeah, and it's all white dudes. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather fucking listen to Mayhem. I'd rather listen to fucking Mayhem than reggae, to be honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who would? I would love to hear somebody like do Mayhem covers in a reggae sound now. So I guess one thing we should kind of touch on is that there are two vocalists on this album. The band had quite a bit of trouble like finding a vocalist and keeping a vocalist. They had one guy, his name was Maniac. That was the name he went by. And he performed all the vocals on this album except for the tracks Pure Fucking Armageddon and the Venom cover Witching Hour. Both of those were sung by a guy named Messiah, which, you know, those names, again, not very original, I guess.
But, you know, you work with what you got.
Yeah. And, you know, I know we keep talking about Dead, and he actually did not record on this record. He didn't show up until their first record. So we're just kind of like talking about him in passing because he was still around during this time. Like, he was in touch with the dudes. He joined like pretty much right after this anyways. So he was, whenever they would play live shows, he was doing like all of these songs live anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't particularly matter.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And,
like, yeah, I was going to say, like, vocally, like, this album is, looking at this album, it's not like a very kind of high point for vocals, whether it's black metal or any kind of metal, to be perfectly honest.
yeah, and the thing is, too, the guy Maniac, he eventually does come back to Mayhem in 1995. I think he's their current vocalist. To be honest, like, it's hard to keep up because that's like the one thing that Mayhem has like kind of changed a lot. I think they've had like 4 or 5 vocalists around.
No. So I think he joined them briefly for like a live stint back last year, but there's this guy Attila Sesha is their vocalist, and he's been with the band since like 2004.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, dude, he's been in a lot of bands. If you go look him up, he has pretty much been in like Emperor, Keep of Kalessin, fucking Mayhem, Tormentor, all kinds of shit, man. Dude's been around. So when they recorded this back in 1987, well, in partly 86, you know, and it got released the same year in 87, you know, Euronymous was the leader of the band for the most part, and he was the one that decided to hire the 2 vocalists, and that's where you have the guy Maniac, and that's who would come back in 95, and then you have the other guy Messiah, who is pretty much an unknown, pretty much even as a personality, like nobody knew anything about that guy, so it was kind of weird that they kind of kept him on, but everyone that interacted with him got to know him, so that's kind of how he ended up being in the band. And I think the part of that was because Euronymous didn't want to do the vocals himself anymore, which is, I guess, what they were doing before they recorded this when they were playing live shows. Euronymous was on vocals. And so, the other members in the band, you had Mannheim on drums and Necro Butcher on bass. Those are pretty much the founding members of Mayhem. And that's the one thing that's kind of the trump card here is the alternating vocals of these 2 guys. They kind of individually represent, like, unprecedented levels of brutality and, like, unhinged hatred, than anything that has kind of ever been heard. If you really, really listen to how they're, like, just screaming, and it might be overstating it a bit, but without these guys' vocal contributions, I mean, what else would we have? Because if you think about it, that shaped like the whole black metal kind of scene because of how these guys projected their vocal styles.
Yeah, exactly. And by today's standards, we'd look at it and think, but like if you, again, listening to it with the years of 1987, this would be like a whole different, this would be a game changer.
Yeah, and it kind of was. It was, I mean, it was a huge game changer for back then. I mean, a lot of people took it different ways, like you had the guys like Burzum doing like one-man black metal bands, and Dark Throne basically like 2 guys in a black metal band. but it's just that lo-fi, screeching vocals, like blast beat kind of sounds that started it all, man.
Exactly, and that we all know and love, and it's what we all think about when we think about black metal.
Mm-hmm. And you really have to think too, like with the aesthetic of black metal, the corpse paint and the the leather jackets and spikes and everything. That was started by the singer Dead, that would eventually be in the band. And I guess we'll kind of touch on it for a second, but the guy kind of lives up to his name because he did eventually end up committing suicide.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so he is dead. He was also one of the first guys, like I think even before, no, this was after, probably after G.G. Allen, but another one of those guys that was like on stage cutting himself. He in fact, like he cut himself so bad once that like he thought he was dying. He didn't go to the hospital, and like he was fucking sick and passing out, and dude was fucked up. He was known for being like pretty depressive and like, down in the dumps. Like anytime you ask about Dead, it's like, oh yeah, he's always depressed. So, but he's the guy that made corpse paint. He would also kind of like bury his clothes for several days before a concert to give him a fresh from the grave look. I think it's taking it to a ridiculous level there, but hey man, you got to live up to the part, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe it was like his like suicide photo that they used for like a album, like a bootleg album cover or something like that. Yeah, for their 1995 release of Dawn of the Black Hearts. Yeah,
and that was kind of a thing that fractured the band a little bit too, because I think it was Euronymous maybe.
No, he would have been dead by then. Euronymous would have been dead.
Well, he's the one that took the picture.
Oh, shit.
I'm pretty sure. One of the guys took the picture, and basically whatever happened was somebody in the band didn't want him to use the picture, and he did anyways, and that's kind of like what split the band up for a long time, because he was like, dude, that's fucked up. Like, you're disrespecting like our friend doing that. And he was like, no, but I need to be like true black metal, and this is true black metal. And that's kind of the weird thing.
He's spelling it with a V.
Yeah, like that's the thing about these guys, man, is like some of them take it way too fucking serious. Like the whole shtick, like being true and like living up to this, black metal, like I have to be this certain way and do this certain thing. And they just like hate and talk shit about everything else and hate everything else. And it's a weird like closed kind of elitist mindset that they have, and it's kind of unfortunate that a lot of those guys were like that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it is what happens when you do take your art too seriously and you take your job too seriously. I don't know how you could even, basically live that way, but
I know.
But yeah, you've got these guys there, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean that's just how those guys were, and I realized like a lot of them were really young. If you look at guys like Fenriz from Darkthrone, who was kind of a little bit of a shithead when he was younger, but now he's like one of the cooler dudes in black metal. Like he's so fucking like open to everything, and like he's one of the cooler guys. I think Aishan from Emperor is also like kind of that way too now, but there's some guys that never got out of it, like Varg. He's still a racist piece of shit. Like all he does is post YouTube videos talking about the master race and white power and all this shit. It's like, dude, stop. Like it's old hat.
Yeah, you went to prison, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's another thing that happened. We're not going to go into it, but he did end up murdering Euronymous because trying to be more black metal and blah 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 blah. It's stupid. The whole thing about black metal that's really kind of stupid. They were just young kids that got too caught up in like their own hype and like all this shit that they were starting, that they just got really crazy with it and started committing actual crimes. And when you're actually committing crimes,
look the way, yeah.
It just takes away from the music a little bit, and you shouldn't have to have that be what people pay attention to over the music.
Well, then again, it's like I feel like that the whole church band, the whole early black metal in the early '90s was essentially akin to your East Coast West Coast rap rivalry.
I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, like people died.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was a lot of shootings.
Yeah, people took their art way too seriously. Just having public kind of beefs.
Yeah.
Just with people just for no reason. And it really is it's like you basically are living your art.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah, you got a point there, because Tupac and Biggie both did get killed over stupid shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not to mention but then again, it did give the rise to essentially, all those people now, like the NWA, Puff Daddy, all that kind of that good rap. When we talk about the good rap, it's the ones from the early to mid '90s. That's
yep.
Yes. So I don't know. I feel like that when you do have kind of competition within a scene, you can either go about it where it's like, when you talk about hardcore, everyone's all like, yeah, let's all just let's all just help each other out, and we're a community of brothers, man. And then you got this, which is the opposite of that.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because within hardcore, there's also that other sect of hardcore that's like super straight edge, and they fucking hate everybody that isn't straight edge and cause trouble. But there is also the good hardcore where there's posi-core or whatever. But yeah, man, it is it is the antithesis of that thing. They don't care about helping, they don't care about anything but themselves, and barely even their band sometimes. If you really think about it, all this stuff that they had to deal with is pretty detrimental to the band. I mean, sure, they're legendary now, and they can pack out House of Blues and stuff like that, but at what cost?
But it's it is your business, it is your livelihood. This is how you put food on the table.
Yeah, and I mean, 2 people lost their lives over a band. It's fucking crazy and ridiculous. But I mean, at the end of the day, it gives us good stories. It gives these albums a little extra kind of, I guess,
it really gives some gravitas behind it. There's there's an actual story behind it, instead of well, here's an actual product that you can go buy and listen to. Yeah,
that's a good word. So yeah, I agree 100% with that, and that's why black metal is so notorious, because of the feeling and the weight behind it, and all the little bullshit and controversy. It all adds up, and it gives black metal what it is today. And I get it. I mean, that's why I think it is funny when people think about cliche metal stuff and they think black metal, and I'm like, all right, well, that is the evilest form of metal if I really had to pick one. If you made a chart where it was neutral, good, lawful good, evil, chaotic evil, black metal would be chaotic evil. Exactly, yeah. So I mean, for 30 years, man, I think the Deathcrush EP to this day is probably, it holds up. It holds up by far.
I'm going to say it holds up. If this were an album, I don't know how I feel, but I feel like it's an EP. Went out, listened to this probably about 2 times today when I was on a run. So yeah, I'm going to say that this was the perfect length for what it needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was any longer, it probably would have outstayed its welcome, especially with having 2 different vocalists. But I mean, look what they did after this. The album that came out after this was infinitely better. And I don't know about you, but their last album that came out was fucking great. I listen to Cywar still to this day. That's such a good fucking song. That whole album's pretty solid.
I haven't heard that album in years, so you're making me want to go back to it tonight.
Yeah, good dude. Go listen to it now. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll finish this, stop, and then we'll go.
Well, so I guess that wraps it up for Mayhem. Since we only have one other album to talk about for the history this week, we're going to talk about some new releases to kind of break up in between these 2 records. So if you're hearing that sound right now, that rumbling, tumbling breakdown in the background, that means it is time for this week's Heavy Metal History Breakdown. Cool. So let's start with Cradle of Filth. We're going to talk about the new. We have 4 albums we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Cradle of Filth, Cryptoriana. We're going to talk about the new Counterparts record, the new Encephalum record, and the new Merker record. So that's two more black metal bands we're going to talk about, sort of.
Oh boy, I'm getting my face paint out as we speak.
Yeah. And then we got like a melodic hardcore band, and then we got like a... I don't really know how to describe Encephalum. They're like... I don't know... They're fun. They're metal.
Fun a monomarth.
Yeah, that's a good way to call it. Fun a monomarth. So let's start off with Cradle of Filth. We'll go with that one first. We'll start and end with the black metal bands, and we'll have everything else in between. So I don't know how big of a Cradle of Filth fan you are, Matt, but for me, they're kind of one of the bands that like started me off into metal. A little bit after I had gotten that Hatebreed album, I got Cradle of Filth's Damnation in a Day and also Midian at the same time. So for me, that was like peak Cradle of Filth, and every album after that progressively got worse and worse. Did you see like one of their... Yeah, I was going to say, did you see one of their film clips on like Headbangers Ball? Was it like an amphetamine? Yep. No, I didn't see amphetamine. This was when Damnation in a Day was out, so I saw the video for Mannequin, I believe it was called. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. I should know. I've listened to the album for years. It's called Mannequin. And I just remember seeing Danny Filth like all in his fucking like weird black metal paint, and like everybody just like all decked out and like his crazy ass vocals, and I was like, I'm into this. So I went to the CD store like the next day and bought that record. So back in 2003, that was on regular rotation for me, and Nymphetamine came out like a year later in 2004, and I was okay with it. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. But every album after that was worse and worse and worse.
I will agree, because I think I started getting into metal right about the time when Nymphetamine came out, about 2004, and I had 2 mates in high school. They were both obsessed with Cradle of Filth. One guy even more than the other. It was ridiculous. I think he moved up to Townsville. I know when he left high school, he came back down just for the day, just to go see Cradle of Filth. I think in like 2013 here.
Damn.
And then flew back, and then flew up like that night. Now, when they were all into Cradle of Filth, I took one look at this, and I'm like, this is not me. I do not get this.
That's fair.
And I remember seeing them, going to go see Cradle of Filth at that show, and I still didn't get it.
Damn, I'm kind of jealous, because I've actually always wanted to see them live, because I do hear they put on a pretty damn good live show.
Oh, it was loud.
Yeah.
I will tell you something, that it was loud and people were having a really good time. I feel like the people that were there and the people that wanted to be there, they enjoyed themselves, and they probably thought it was an excellent gig. My mates thought it was a good gig too. One of them had the shirt, which is actually banned in this country. You can't like get it imported now anyway. The Jesus is a cunt shirt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet I know exactly which shirt it is.
Yeah. So what happened was, we drove into the city. We parked at the old Darling Harbour Convention Centre, because that's where the parking was, and we walked through it. And guess what convention was going on right then?
I don't know.
Like an actual, some kind of, I don't know. It was something. It was blank group for Jesus.
Blank group for Jesus, huh?
Yeah, I can't remember what group it was. I don't know if it was like, mothers or something like that. But it was an actual, just like a giant, like a Christian, like a kind of like convention that had all the crosses, all the Bibles, everything out. And it was just like, what have we walked into? No one said anything, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
But he was just going around the entire convention hall, just like sneaking in, just kind of like, walking around just trying to get some reaction because he's a fucking idiot. and then as we were driving home, we stopped at a McDonald's, got out, and we just absolutely just needed to get some food. And then whilst we're eating, there's this drunk guy that just comes up to us and is like, I'm not even a Christian, but that shirt is really offensive to me. Take it off right now. And then my mate's like, no, just go away. If you just go over to the other side of the restaurant, it won't offend you.
Yeah.
And then he took a swing at him, missed, like fell on his face, knocked our food over, and like he was like trying to get back up, he just couldn't.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a long way to go for something that, like, I'm not religious, but I'm still offended. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah, the guy was drunk and obviously was looking for a fight. And it's like, I would never wear a shirt like that, as you, like, try and, as you were intoxicated in public and you essentially, as you commit assault.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, guess what? You still don't have to, man. I am the one wearing the shirt. Don't worry about it. It affects you in no way.
Yeah, exactly. When he was like, go over to the other side of the restaurant and you'll be fine.
Damn.
So yeah, that is kind of my really kind of affiliation with Cradle of Filth.
So what were your thoughts on this album?
So I hadn't listened to Cradle of Filth since that night.
Okay.
And listening to this, I didn't half mind it.
Yeah, man. So I have to say, for me personally, this album is like a return to form for them. They really, really stepped up back into their game. All the symphonic elements and like the choir and stuff that they put in really added like an extra layer to the music, and it sounds better than everything else they put out for like the past 7 years. There's a couple songs on the record that like they play some pretty cliche riffs that I'm pretty sure I've heard like 1,000 times in songs. Like there's one song where they just play a ascending and descending like scale like 2 or 3 times, and it's like, okay, cool. Like that's like you've heard that like 1,000 times in a song, just like a da 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 da. But it works. I feel like if you can play a cliche riff and it still sounds good, then you fucking owned it. Like, it doesn't matter. It wasn't cliche enough to where it like took away from the song. It still made sense the way it was used in the song. And I fucking love this album, man. It was really good. I'm still listening to it, at least once or twice a day. The only song I didn't really care for was the final song on the album. It stands out and it doesn't fit at all. It's probably the worst song on the album, and it sucks. Was that Alice in Hell? Yep. Yeah, because you know why? Why? It's a actual cover song of Canadian thrash metal band called Annihilator. Oh, well, I did not know that. So that's good that you caught that, man, because I was really thrown off by that song, and I was just like, this doesn't fit at all. Like, it doesn't sound the same. It's just kind of there and repetitive, and damn, I didn't know that. So that's good that you caught that. I just kind of listened to it. I didn't really do any research. No. So there's a reason why it was out of place. And that's that. Like, Annihilator essentially were second tier Anvil. Yeah. I'm aware of Annihilator. They're whatever. Not my cup of tea. Yeah. But yeah, man, I was really blown away by this album. I could tell that they put a lot of work into it, that they finally got their kinks kind of worked out with like their new guitar players, and everything, and they know what they're trying to do now. And they really showed it on this album. And I think if you've kind of written off Cradle of Filth for the past few years, which is fair, give this album a chance. I will say one thing. I think everybody needs to stop calling Cradle of Filth a black metal band. There's nothing black metal about this album, honestly. It doesn't sound like a black metal. It just sounds like a symphonic metal album, And it could be in the minority on that. And I feel, same before, like,
Yeah, but if you really just go into this with just, don't have your expectations so far to the bottom that like you won't, that if you just listen to anything, it'll sound amazing. But yeah, even if someone doesn't like Cradlefield, just give it a go.
Yeah, it's a good album. It's seriously worth your time. So go listen to it. It's called Cryptoriana, the Seductress of Decay. So yeah, man, I think that's a good one. I'm gonna do a actual review for that one on the website later this week, maybe. There's a couple I want to do, but we'll see. It's really time consuming.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So yeah, man, I think I dug it. I don't know. Did you dig it at least?
I dug it. I don't know if I'll listen to it again, but
That's
I dug
fair.
it.
Yeah, that's fair. Cool. So now we're gonna talk about the new Counterparts record. Counterparts is one of these bands that I found them by complete accident through when I was working at Hot Topic. They would come on the player every now and then, and it was before their last album came out, Tragedy Will Find Us. But then we got the actual record for Tragedy Will Find Us on our player when it came out, and I fell in love with the band like super, super hard on that record. I had always been kind of like on the fence about them. Like they're okay, but they're just like not quite there yet. With Tragedy Will Find Us, they got to that point that I had been looking for them to go to with their previous two records. And then with this record right here, they are fucking exactly where I want them to be in terms of sound and like everything that they can bring to like that melodic hardcore, like Misery Signals kind of genre. So yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, this is basically, this really does sound like Misery Signals.
Yeah, maybe not vocally because of Carl Schubach's voice. Like he's got a lot lower mid-range vocals, whereas these are like kind of not necessarily like high range, but they're one constant range of vocals, whereas like Carl's a little all over the place with his. But goddamn, this album goes hard as fuck. Like, it's a good album. It's really, really short too. It's only like barely 30 minutes long, and it feels more like an EP than it does a full album. But goddamn, dude, every song for me, like I'm into it. Like I've probably listened to it like at least 6 times so far, and it only came out 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah, it hasn't been out for very long. I think I was listening to it at work. I think I was listening to it at work yesterday. That's like turned off halfway through because it's like this is just too much for me in an office environment. I'll have to come back to this later.
Yeah, it does make you want to rage a little bit. There's some songs on there. I think "No Servant of Mine" is like pretty fucking hard. There's another song. There's like 2 more songs on there that are like really like they go for it, and I was like, shit, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Haunt Me or something like that.
Yes, Haunt Me. Yeah, dude, I think they really outdid themselves with this record. Like they just keep getting better with every record. And I hope this isn't like the peak for them. I hope that they can keep getting better. I think my one complaint with the record is, and this might be how I listen to it on YouTube or whatever, but it does on some parts sound just like a giant wall of sound. Like,
see, I noticed that as well, and I like that.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was how they recorded it or if that's how I was listening to it, but it is a lot of sound. Like you just hear everything coming at you full force, like all the guitars, all the bass, all the drums, all the vocals, and it's just non-fucking stop. So that's why I think the album goes hard as fuck.
yeah, exactly. And as you said before, it's only 30. It's just, it does a good job of not outstaying its welcome.
Yeah, that's the thing is like every time it's done, I'm like, oh fuck, that's it. Like, and then that's why I like kind of started over again because I'm like, I'll just listen to it again. Like, why not? So
yeah, it's one of those albums where if like, you have it on cassette, listen to it once, flip it over, listen to it again. The kind of like the Rain and Blood.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, it is like a Rain and Blood. It's over and done pretty quick. But I mean, I think exactly. That's a good thing about this album. Like, it's got enough replayability because of how short it is that you don't get bored with it. It's got enough variation in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's short, but you don't feel like you've been short.
Yep. So yeah, man, I fucking love this album. It's probably going to be on like regular rotation for me for the rest of the year. It might be on my end of year list. We'll have to see. I know we still got a couple more things about to drop that I'm looking forward to. I know
next week, dude.
Yeah, Converge and Primitive Man. Oh shit.
Yeah, and also, I was going to say that new Black Dahlia comes out next week too.
Oh yeah. I keep forgetting about them. I got it. You know what's weird, man? Like, I do love Black Dahlia, but for whatever reason, their past like 2 or 3 albums since Ritual, I'll listen to them like once or twice, and then like that's kind of it. Like I just stopped listening to them.
Oh, look, I'm going to be honest. I did not like that last album they put out.
I didn't either. I think I listened to it like once.
But the one they did before that, Everblack
was good.
Yeah, that was great. That first song, where it just fucking goes hard as fuck for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That is like, you know, I'm doing the okay side here for all you viewers at home, because I can't even put it into words just how much of a banger that is.
Yeah, Everblack was good. I forgot about that one. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't ever get my hopes up for a Black Dahlia record, because I figure at this point, you know, and they have a new guitar player now, so I don't know like what his style is going to be really. I mean, so far the songs that I've heard, you know, Nightbringers and everything, it sounds good. Like it's not a shitty record.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it'll stick with me like a lot of their old stuff has. But we'll see.
Oh, exactly. Like, you know, the amount like how Nocturnal stuck with me for like fucking high school.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I got them like right when Unhallowed came out. So for me, Unhallowed, Miasma, it's still to this day like I'm never gonna not know a single word to every single one of those songs. They're just stuck in my head. Yeah,
it's like you'll forget your social security number before you forget one of those lyrics.
Yep, pretty much. So the next album we're going to talk about is Encephalum, Two Hunters. These guys are kind of like, I guess, you know, I hate like making stupid labels for other metal bands, because as far as I'm concerned, it's just fucking metal. But I guess these guys are considered a folk metal band, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, I get it too, but I mean, like, what's the need to call it folk metal? Just call it metal, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, Encephalum's one of those bands that I kind of stopped listening to for a number of years. The old guitar player, Yari, he went and did Winter Sun, and I got more into Winter Sun than I did Encephalum, so I stopped listening to Encephalum. But then Winter Sun stopped putting out records for like 10 years, up until like a couple years ago. His output's been really bad with Winter Sun, but then Winter Sun just put out an album last month, and now Encephalum has a new album, and they're both pretty similar. I don't notice a lot of differences between them, to be honest, minus like the vocals.
Yeah.
You know, the guitar playing's, they sound not the same, but, you know, it's in the same genre, so it's so fucking similar. It's just like, okay, I can see why this dude was in the band. Like, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and as someone who, for as long as you've probably, like, you know me, you probably know that I wouldn't particularly go out of my way to listen to Encephalum.
Yeah, I like challenging you a lot of times, honestly, dude.
But ask me what I thought of this album.
What did you think of this album?
I actually liked it.
Yeah, so did I.
I liked it more than I honestly liked this album probably more than I thought I was going to like it.
Yeah, that was my, well, I didn't really have like a high expectation of it, you know, because I hadn't listened to him in a long time, but I was like looking at some reviews and like people talking about it, and nobody was really stoked on it. But then I listened to it and I was like, this is fucking good, man. Like, I was into it. I probably listened to it a couple times, and I was just like, this is like a nice little journey, and like I can have it on in the background and do other things, but I can also listen intently to it and still get the same thing out of it. And it's like, it's a good fucking album. It's solid.
Yeah, exactly, and I honestly feel the same way too. Like, this is something you can put on in the background, but when you do want to, put your headphones on, listen to it, you find a little bit more every time you go in.
Yeah, that's the good thing about this kind of songwriting is that it's so dense, and there's so many different instruments and things being played that there's different things to pick on.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good album. I don't know, man. People can complain about the band. Apparently, the band's like changed their sound up a lot, and I can kind of see that. If you listen to their first couple records, it is pretty different. But at its core, it still sounds like the band. Like there's not a lot that they changed. Like it's a little more, I guess, melodic and I don't know, not as growly and screamy.
Yeah, but then again, as someone like me who's never really listened to Encephalon before, I wouldn't know about all this, and I would just I was listening to the album just based upon the fact of the album alone. I know they've had like a big long history and everything that happened between them and Winter Sun and all that. But just judging this purely what it is compared to what it was or what it should be, I'm going to say this is a good album.
Yeah, and that's kind of good that you can do that because you don't have like the gauge. It's like this is just your first kind of foray, and I think that's a good thing to have, man. Like even if somebody's never really listened to this band, it's like you said earlier, it's like a fun Amon Amarth, and it really is. It's like a fun album.
Yeah. Now Amon Amarth is fun to listen to.
It's true.
As well. I'm not taking anything away from them, but yeah, like it's more kind of like a light, not to say it's not heavy or anything like that, but it's like a kind of a lighthearted, version of that.
Yep. Yeah, it is pretty lighthearted, but that's kind of good. Like, I'm not like huge into fantasy, but like I can only assume that there are some scenes in Game of Thrones where like this music would be pretty like apt for what's going on in Game of Thrones. Maybe. Oh,
exactly. Yeah, if you have people like doing like YouTube reaction videos, they'd also be liking this kind of music.
Yeah. I think the crossover is there.
Yeah, the crossover's there. It exists and it is real.
Cool. So yeah, I guess we're both in agreement. We enjoyed. I know this. It kind of sounds like we talk about albums that we always end up liking, but I think that's just because music is so good right now. Like, I really haven't been disappointed by very much this year, if I'm being honest.
Oh, there's something that you left out of here, but I'm gonna get to it after this next album.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna go into the last album now. We're gonna talk about the Merker. I don't know how to say it. Merker.
Okay.
Merker.
Yeah. You're probably going to have to take the lead on this one because I could not find this album anywhere.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I listened to it a couple times. She is a very polarizing person. She gets a lot of flack because she's a woman, obviously, which is completely unfair. I don't think that should have anything to do with her.
Wait, is she the one where it's like just keep going because I'm going to find a photo of it because I'm pretty sure I skimmed past this or through on Spotify thinking that's not what you're basically thinking of.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, so
here's me fucking admitting sexism on the internet. I'm gonna get fucking you like roasted alive.
It's all good, man. Yeah, so she's pretty polarizing. A lot of like true black metal elitists and even some just general like metal elitists write her off pretty fucking quick because she is a woman and because she is a one-woman black metal band.
Was the album called Merit It?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, righto. I was looking at it the whole fucking time. Didn't even bother listening to it.
It's all good, man. Don't worry about it. So, with that aside, the controversy of like her sex and like whatever, it is unfortunate a lot of people write her off because I do think that she is very fucking talented for her songwriting. The fact that she does all of this composition and arranging and playing by herself, that's fucking phenomenal. And this shit sounds good for just one person doing it. With that being said, there is a small part of me that does wonder if this is not a record label stunt that she does have ghostwriters, that people do play for her in the studio and help her write. But that could just be me being sexist. I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, at the same time, I mean, you'd all have to get like, ghostwriters. I mean, how many times have you seen on an album credits where the producer has written, whether it's a solo or a part of a riff or a song or anything like that, when a band essentially records their albums.
Yeah.
So that's basically just, if you are hired as a studio musician by that label or by her, that is your essentially job, is to come up with something like that, and you know what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I've looked up like all the liner notes and stuff like that, and I don't really see anybody else credited on anything, like not significantly anyways.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't get the way you were probably paid and the way you probably did that gig was that you never probably got any album credits, anything like that. You were probably given like a flat studio fee, and that's that. And if and that's basically just how the game's essentially played.
Yeah. But again, like I said, that's just me being a little paranoid because she does get like a huge record label push.
Really?
Oh yeah,
because I don't know anything about this, so
I feel like with her last album, this album especially, like anytime she drops something, it's news like all over any music site. I know she just did a collaboration with Chelsea Wolfe, which is another one that gets like a bunch of play on metal websites, and I don't get it because she is not metal like at all. She just kind of makes like shoegazy, like kind of pop music and stuff, She's good. Yeah. Like she's phenomenal. She's like an amazing vocalist. But I don't think that she should be getting write-ups on heavy metal websites. You know what I mean?
I get what you mean, but yeah.
But despite all that stuff, this is her second album, and she kind of dials back the black metal quite a bit on this record. I feel like.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot more like just regular singing in Norwegian, or I could be wrong. I'm really sorry if I'm wrong. But she does do singing in English as well. But there are like those moments where like she just like straight up goes into those black metal like blast beats and riffs, and like her vocals are so high pitched that it oh my god, it's baleful the way it sounds. Like it's so haunting, and it's good. She's got such a fantastic range that I am surprised that she can sing when she screams so loud. You know what I mean? Yeah,
okay. Dude, the more you talk about this, the more and more I am just so intrigued that like I kind of want to just stop this and listen to it.
It's pretty good, man. Like my only complaint, and this is kind of weird, because we talked about it with the Counterparts record. It's too short. It's a really short record. Like when I listened to it, it felt like it was building up to something, and then it just fucking ended, and I was like, wait, that's it? Like it's fucking done?
Wait, the one that just came out, apparently that's like 52 minutes long.
Really? It did not feel like 52 minutes at all.
Well, I don't even think that's but I mean, based upon these new facts, these developing facts, I feel like that can't be, you can't hold anything really against that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I didn't really look at the time. Like, I was just kind of listening to it. So if it's 52 minutes, and it sure as fuck didn't feel like it. Like, it felt over pretty quick, and I was just like, damn, man, I'm like ready to listen to this again. It's a good record. I don't know if I would listen to it like all the time. I don't even know if like, I don't think it'll be on like any kind of year-end list for me, but I think for her second record, man, it's a really good follow-up to her first record. I am really interested to see where she goes from here. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's cool. I don't know. All the controversy is kind of weird for me. I think it's stupid the way people judge it. And I think, from what I understand recently, she just said a bunch of Islamophobic shit, and that really fucking pissed people off. Yeah, I don't want to get all in that.
Yeah, no, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, who knows? We did reach out to try and get her on the podcast. She's not available for interviews right now, but who knows? Maybe in the future, man. It'd be cool to fucking have her on. I would love to know how she writes and records everything. So,
yeah, exactly. Please respond.
Yeah, no, we got a response. We got a response. It was no, not right now.
All right.
Cool. So I think that's everything for new releases. All in all, man, pretty solid week. I know that that's like barely anything of what was actually released. That's just kind of what we chose to talk about.
Yeah, there was one thing that actually was released that I actually was looking forward to, and I will be doing a write-up of this on the site.
Okay.
And that is the new 36 Crazy Fist album, Lanterns.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not into that band, so I didn't even like...
Oh, Seth, I was fucking all about that band when I was like, in between when those first three albums, I still regularly listen to them, and even like in the lead up to this being released, I was like putting them back on probably more than I should have.
So it was a little bit
this
of
album. What's that? Sorry.
I was gonna say, was it a little bit of a letdown for you? Is it?
Oh, I mean, they have been on the kind of the steady decline, but this didn't really help, shake things up. But I'll be getting more into that.
All right, fair enough. We can, we can talk about that one on the next episode.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna end this episode out with a band called Cacophony and their album Speed Metal Symphony. Now, Cacophony, I couldn't find a lot of information on this record. For whatever reason, it's so hard to find any information on how it was recorded, anything like that. The only thing you can find information on is the two members of the band, which are Jason Becker and Marty Friedman. Marty Friedman, you would know from the good days of Megadeth. He wrote like all the good shit that was on, I believe,
everything from Countdown, Rust in Peace, right up until I think The World Needs a Hero.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The song that had Return to the Hangar and She-Wolf.
Yep. Yeah, so he was there for like the heyday of the heroin use with Dave.
Yeah, he was also in there for Risk, but
Yeah.
he also did Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction.
Yep, and those are fucking phenomenal albums. So these two guys are guitar virtuosos. They are literally some of the best guitar players on our planet. Obviously, around this time, you still have guys like Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, all those guys too.
The guy from Paul Gilbert, Racer X.
Paul Gilbert, yeah. All of these guys are still there, obviously. But these were like the newcomers to this. These were like the up-and-coming kids. Marty Friedman was a little bit older than Jason, but Jason Becker was a prodigy. It's really depressing talking about Jason Becker because his story is so devastating that you see it, it makes you fucking angry that there's so much injustice in this world, that this kid that is so fucking talented ends up with ALS and can no longer move. He is stuck to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. It's so aggravating to see all the talent that this kid had, and he can't even use it anymore because of this fucking disease. And it's so depressing. Just a little background about that, because since we don't really have a lot to talk about this album, other than like, this is like, if you want to equate it to modern bands, Animals as Leaders would be the same thing, Tosin.
Yeah.
I think he's talked about how much Jason Becker is an influence on him. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, like his other, guitar players as well. But
I'd probably say that this Cacophony is essentially Animals as Leaders, but with two Tosins and a vocalist. Yeah,
and a little bit of power metal. It's got a little bit of like power metal feel in there too. But Jesus fucking Christ, can these guys play guitar? Like,
Oh my god.
Dude, you can spend hours on YouTube just watching like Jason Becker videos and Marty Friedman videos, and you'd be like, I don't know if I should even touch a guitar because they're just so fucking good. Like, it's insane how good these guys are. So these guys were two prodigies that didn't really have a band. They could play for other people, so they just decided to like make a band together and release it under this. Obviously, this opened doors for them to go into other things. Jason Becker went and played with David Lee Roth for a little while. That was like his solo career, whereas Marty Friedman went and played with Megadeth and then like a plethora of other bands after that.
Yeah, went to go hide out in Japan afterwards.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah, he stayed in Japan for a long time.
I think he's still there.
Maybe. I know he's been touring the States a lot. He just put an album out this year.
Huh.
So before we kind of move on with the rest of this, we have a couple little clips. We'll play one right now. This one, we're going to play the first one. It's explaining Jason's, I guess, ALS a little more, what he's been through and like his history. So we're going to play that just so you guys are a little familiar. There's a documentary we will suggest you guys watch. It's called Jason Becker, Not Dead Yet.
Oh my god.
It's so depressing but uplifting at the same time, because I guess I'll say this before we play the clip. The one thing that I get out of this documentary is how amazing Jason's will is to keep playing music and how he's managed to pull that off, and how the guy has such a positive attitude even though he is stuck in this chair. Like, because I feel like, me personally, I'd be fucking done. Like, I'd be like, kill me, take me, like, that's, I don't want to live, like, that's it. He's not like that at all. He is so thankful for every day he wakes up. He still puts all the time that he possibly can into writing music, and it's phenomenal that he still has that mindset, and I am jealous and envious and in awe that he can do that. So yeah, here's a clip explaining about Jason's ALS, and it's with the director of the documentary, actually. So we'll let you guys listen to that, and we'll be right back.
Well, thank you. Pleasant sound. I'm going to start out with a composition of mine called Electric Dreams.
Jason Becker is a musician and guitarist, and he is also a very well-known ALS survivor. And so he is a hero to some people, he's an inspiration to some people, and he's the subject of my documentary film. Jason was at the top level. I mean, he was a 19-year-old kid who could do anything he wanted to do on the guitar. He was given the biggest rock guitar gig on the planet and was set to just take over the world of rock guitar, and then a week later he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease and given 3 to 5 years to live. So it's sort of a very, very high and a very, very, very low.
It is a terminal diagnosis. There is no treatment available. Any other disease, there seems to be hope. You talk to any ALS patient and they'll tell you that when they go in and that fear of that diagnosis, they're hoping for brain cancer. They're hoping for, Parkinson's. They're hoping for Alzheimer's or dementia. It's a really crazy situation that they're placed in.
It essentially just completely robs you of the ability to move, yet your mind and your desire to want to live and express yourself normally and be a normal person carries on being the same. So it's literally becoming a prisoner in your own body. Your body becomes a prison. Seeing Jason for the first time was an incredible feeling. It was suddenly, all became real, that this was gonna happen, that I was making a film about him and there was no turning back. And there was a long and exciting road ahead of me, and Jason as well. So seeing him kind of just made it all a reality, because he's such a mythical figure. There's so much, kind of mystique and mystery and mythology about him. So it was a bit daunting, because I wasn't just meeting him to say hello. I was meeting him to be the person to tell his story.
Then L, O, low, R, lower, D, N, O, not, T, H, that, not that D. So guitar to computer, and once Jason has his notes on the computer, he has something to work with and play with, and that's like his palette, and he can start to paint his songs.
From Jason and his family, what I learned is that there is hope for people with, a terrible kind of affliction in their lives, whether or not it's a disease or death of a family member or anything. And also, I learned not to kind of sweat the small stuff too much, I think that if I'm having a bad day or something, I just think, well, look at Jason and the hardships he's gone through, and I don't, where do I get off trying to feel sad about something I'm going through when he's still so positive and has found a way to carry on being a happy person.
Cool. So hopefully you guys dug that little sound clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the thing about Jason is he started playing guitar when he was a kid, like really, really young, like 3 or 4 years old, I think. By the time he was 15, he was already like doing fucking arpeggiated sweep picking and like finger tapping, and just, dude, he was like killing it on guitar. There's a YouTube video you can go watch right now where he is 15 years old and just like shredding on the guitar so hard, and it's inspiring, like how good that kid was. And basically what had happened was he was in Cacophony. He was touring with Marty Friedman. They were touring like all over the place. They were fucking massive for that time. I think they were in Japan. He was just about to get the gig playing with David Lee Roth, and he started having this weird numbness in his arm. And so he started going to the doctor a bunch, and that's when they kind of diagnosed him with ALS. And slowly but surely he deteriorated over the years to the point where, like, first he couldn't walk and he was in a wheelchair, but he could still talk and move his head. He could still kind of play guitar, and then it just worked his way up and he couldn't play guitar anymore, but he could still talk. And then it got to a point where he couldn't talk, and now he's just like fully paralyzed. And it's kind of astounding how he writes music. I don't know what it's like now, but when they were doing the documentary, they have this little thing where he like, I guess he kind of moves his eyes towards what he wants as far as like the note, and then he has this thing on his chin that he can kind of like click, that clicks the note into place. So it's pretty extravagant and like excuse me, it's what's another word for it? Complicated. It's really complicated, like how he has to write music now. His dad helps him out, but he can still compose everything inside his head. Like, he knows how the note should sound, how the chords should go, and like what order. So he still writes music. He does everything with his eyes, as far as I know. That's how he does it. And last I heard, he is still crowdfunding an album that he is writing to get put out. So I think you can go to his Facebook page, Jason Becker, and it should all be on there. Other than that, he's still alive and he's still pushing through this, and it's fucking amazing and sad. And it's one of those things where you have to look at life and it's just like, man, it's fucking unfair that this guy has all this talent and he gets struck with this disease and he can't use any of it, and yet there's shitheads out there like fucking Donald Trump running our country and he gets to do everything. No, the guy contributes nothing to our society.
It's it really is unfortunate, but I really, this is, like I said, it's just a bummer to talk about.
It is a bummer, but one thing I want to bring this, to light about this is that people should really go check him out. If you've never heard of Jason Becker, seriously, you will fucking fall in love. If you're a fan of Animals as Leaders or any of those virtuoso guitar players, he is right up your alley. If you already know about Jason Becker, you're in the fucking cool club. Because he does kind of like fall to the wayside because of, not being able to write music since the 80s, basically. I mean, he has, but not really.
Yeah, but and even just getting back to this, just to this album here, this speed metal symphony album. When we talk about, these these virtuoso guitarists, and even when we talked about, let's say for example, the Racer X album we talked about.
Yeah.
You got Paul Gilbert there, and he's shredding and he's fine, but then you just feel like the rest of the band is just really not up to scratch. Yeah,
that's true. They have a hard time.
I feel like, and I feel like that this is as close, like, the supporting members as well. You talk about, the drummer and even the vocalists on here, they're almost at the level of where they should be for this kind of playing.
Yeah, there's like a short live video I saw with like everybody playing in Japan, and yeah, I mean the vocalist is kind of like whatever. He's not great, but he's not terrible. The drummer, he's
able to hold his own.
He is, yeah, he's definitely able to hold his own. The drummer's like okay, he's a kid. Like the drummer's pretty young. I'm sure the dude's gotten like way better. I haven't really like looked up what he's done, to be honest. But I mean, it was a man. I don't want to say it was a record company ploy, but at that time, like the whole thing with like virtuoso guitar players was like a big deal in the 80s. Like that's what people wanted to see, was like Eddie Van Halen, like people shredding guitar, and it was huge. It was massive, way more than it is today. I think it gets overlooked today a lot.
Yeah, there was a very brief period, like when when Animals as Leaders, Scale of Summit, and all those kind of guys, they started really kind of coming out. But I feel like that's kind of died by the wayside now.
It feels like it has a little bit. I mean, there's definitely still those bands that do that. Like there's Chon and Polyphia. They're kind of in that vein too. But yeah, I don't know how well those bands draw. Like I don't go to those shows personally, like because I don't care. I don't want to just see an instrumental band, Yeah, it's just not my thing. But they are talented. They're fucking good. Like I don't mind listening to it, but I'm not going to go see it live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like you just want to put it. For me, I just like to put it on in the background.
Yep. Yeah, totally. That's what I do too. So yeah, I mean, I will say this, man. I don't think the album holds up, unfortunately. It's like the guitar playing does for sure, but I think because of the vocals and like how some of the songs are kind of arranged, and it does have like that little bit of power metal feel, I don't think it really holds up for 30 years. If this came out today, people would be like, what the fuck is this?
Well, even if it didn't have, the kind of the tragic story and just who these people were. Yeah,
would
definitely. This have even like held up like then?
Yeah, no, I think it did pretty well because they put out 2 albums and they both sold really well. I don't know if they were like chart toppers or anything like that, but they did well enough. I mean, it got Marty Friedman and Jason Becker gigs in bigger bands, so that says a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Marty Friedman, one last little thing here. I got like a little interview with Marty Friedman, so we're going to play that real quick, and then we'll call it an episode. So we'll let you listen to that real quick, guys, and be right back.
When it comes to like stuff like Inferno, where it's just a lot of playing and blazing like that, it's pretty much a lot of alterations on things that are kind of normal and just done in a way that I can do.
Okay. And was that the writing process for like the dual guitar insanity of the Cacophony era? Or
it was more prevalent in Cacophony than it is now, because in Cacophony we weren't as good at songwriting, for one thing, and we weren't as concerned with songwriting as like maybe I am now. I mean, you can do a couple albums like that where it's just like going crazy on guitar all the time, but at some point you're going to have to make music, and some of that is really good. It's very musical. And
Well, I thought there was just such a density of good ideas in there. Maybe they weren't all fleshed. Maybe every one of those could have been a tune.
that's a good idea. That's a good word. I mean, density. I mean, we had so much that we wanted to like prove, because there was this big guitar scene going on, and we didn't really like it.
Oh, so this was your answer to it.
Yes, it was our answer to it. I mean, there was a lot of super players, and we loved their abilities. But I think we, like I just said, we kind of wanted to fuck that stuff and kind of do it maybe a little bit more dissonant, and with a couple different influences, like from obscure classical music. He's a god of that, but like also with Jason, it really wasn't about the technique, it was about content. Jason was one of those fantastic guys who techniques, I'm sure he worked very hard on it, but like he could master any technique anytime. But once you do that, now what do I do? Now you've got to make music. So he had all of these fantastic techniques at his command, and whatever they call them, I don't know what they, hybrid picking and all this stuff. He could do all those things. I could pretty much interpret my own music my own way with my own weird set of abilities, but he had that plus all of the standard techniques. So he had a really big palette of stuff. And I was around at the time where he came from like just having that technique to actually creating music with it. And that's when you really start to grow.
All right, so that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the podcast. We don't want to end on too down of a note here, so just real quick, I would recommend go watching the documentary Jason Becker, Not Dead Yet. Also, go look up all his fucking YouTube videos because they're awesome as fuck. Follow him on Facebook. Like I know he doesn't post on Facebook, but like the people around him post on Facebook. He's really active, and it's actually really cool, like hearing from him and stuff, and like what he has to say about things. He has an awesome signature guitar through Carvin Guitars, I believe. It's pretty cool. Marty Friedman just put out a record this year. It's pretty solid. Go check that out. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna be recording with Winds of Plague on Monday. You guys probably will already hear that by the time you hear this, I think. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to put these out. Yeah, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, keep following us on the old social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a like, share us around. Get in contact with us. More than welcome to. Reviews are on the site as well.
Yeah, let us know what you think of the reviews. I know we don't have a place to put comments or anything like that on there, unfortunately, but, send us an email. Like, we're really easy to get a hold of. We don't mind talking to you guys. Yeah, just fucking let us know what's up. So, yeah, until next week, guys. Matt, why don't you take us out of here?
Yeah, until next week, guys. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.